After a boy forgot his lunch money, he pleaded with the cafeteria to let him eat something and he'd pay them back. However, what the school offered him instead sparked outrage all over social media. Like most parents, Amy Whitaker Anders knows that children can be incredibly forgetful, especially when it comes to the basics. So when her son Jake forgot to bring his lunch money to school with him, the worst she could expect would be a bill or possibly even a note lecturing her on her responsibility to send her child with enough money for each meal. Instead, she found out that school can be just as neglectful as her young son. When it comes to the public school system, no child is supposed to go without food, even if they have no money to pay for their lunch. Of course, while there is a strict requirement that each child should be given sustenance regardless of their ability to pay, there isn't exactly a prerequisite specifying what constitutes an acceptable meal, as Anders and her child discovered. After Jake returned home from his school in Avon, Indiana, Anders expected that he had eaten a school lunch for which she'd have to compensate the next day. Instead, she found that not only had her son been given a less than acceptable meal, but also that he hadn't even eaten it for a startling reason. According to Wish TV, Anders explained in a Facebook post that after her son told the school official that he'd forgotten his lunch money, they took his tray away from him and replaced it with a simple peanut butter sandwich to eat. Aside from the fact that 2 slices of bread with peanut butter isn't exactly a hearty meal, Jake looked down at his substitute lunch to find that was largely covered in dark green mold. Jake forgot his lunch money today. They took his lunch away and he was given this moldy peanut butter sandwich. I sure feel sorry for the kids without actual money who get this each day, Amy Whitaker Anders wrote on Facebook. Although the presence of widespread mold is the major issue, Anders added that the cafeteria also wouldn't allow him to have any milk. She dismissed the idea that this is an isolated incident, further explaining that the same thing happened to another child just weeks earlier. My question is, how could the cafeteria not see this mold? They also took his milk away. His friend also got one a couple of weeks ago, week covered in mold, Amy Whitaker Anders wrote. Anders explained that Jake immediately showed the moldy sandwich to the cafeteria official, who expectedly discarded it. He was then given another sandwich, presumably from the same stash, but was too afraid of what it might contain to eat it. I got a message that he did not feel good and had forgot his lunch money, and this was his lunch, she replied. He did take it back to get one without mold, but was afraid to eat it. He took a pic last week of his friend's moldy sandwich when his lunch was taken away. Jake said he got to the register, and they took his tray. Anders' post immediately sparked an uproar on social media. Most individuals expressed outrage over the school's handling of the issue, while others were disgusted with the thought of a child being denied an acceptable meal in the first place. I was a lunch lady a few years ago in Plainfield. We almost always had extra that got thrown in the trash. So unacceptable. I would be going to the school to have a talk with the principal and call health department, filing a grievance or whatever, one person wrote. That is stupid. So then what did they do with the food on the tray? Throw it away? Another wrote. Unsurprisingly, Anders' post quickly gained the attention of the media, which subsequently forced the school to take notice. Avon Community School Corporation quickly issued a statement, although some found it quite dismissive. We are grateful to be made aware of the situation and have reached out to the parents and apologized. This is an unacceptable human error, and we are looking into it to ensure that this never happens again. For Amy Whitaker Anders, the statement was lacking. While she agrees that mistakes happen, she points back to the fact that this has repeatedly occurred. She concluded that she finds the incident to be an issue of neglect and apathy rather than simply human error. I have no idea how someone could not see this was bad when handing it out, she replied. Anders now makes sure that her son receives a proper lunch every day, realizing that the public school system certainly cannot be trusted to provide it. While it is undeniably the responsibility of the parents to ensure that their children are properly fed, it's still disturbing that the people trusted to educate and care for these kids would miss something so crucial and obvious. The controversy surrounding Jake's moldy sandwich incident didn't end with just an apology from the school. As more parents became aware of the situation, they started sharing similar experiences, fueling even more outrage. One parent, Lisa Jenkins, mentioned that her daughter had been given a spoiled carton of milk just days before Jake's incident. My daughter came home sick because of that milk, and now I'm finding out it's not just an isolated case. Something needs to change, Jenkins vented on social media. As the outrage grew, local media stations picked up the story, sparking debates not only about the quality of school meals, but also about the treatment of children who couldn't afford to pay. Commentators began questioning whether punishing children by giving them substandard food was ethical or in line with what the school system promised to parents. The conversation quickly expanded to a broader dialogue on lunch shaming, a practice where children without lunch money are denied regular meals or given visibly inferior options, marking them as different from their peers. In response to the growing backlash, Avon Community School Corporation announced a review of its lunch policies. However, many critics remained skeptical, pointing out that a review wouldn't address the systemic neglect highlighted by Anders's post. It's not just about a moldy sandwich, it's about the way these kids are being treated when they're at their most vulnerable. A child should never be embarrassed or humiliated over something like this, one social media user commented. A local parent group organized a petition demanding more accountability from the school district. Within days, the petition had gathered thousands of signatures from parents and concerned community members. The petition called for better oversight in the cafeteria, mandatory health inspections, and the elimination of alternative lunches for students without funds. We're not just talking about food, we're talking about dignity, the petition read. Meanwhile, Amy Whitaker Anders, who had initially shared the story, found herself at the center of media attention. She was interviewed by several news outlets where she reiterated that this wasn't about forgetting to send her son with lunch money. I can understand that accidents happen, but when you're handing a child a moldy sandwich and taking away their milk, it's not just an accident anymore. It's negligence, she told one news station. The uproar led to public protests outside the school, where parents held signs demanding justice for children who had been treated unfairly. One sign read, "Our kids deserve better," while another declared, "No child should be punished for being hungry." Local news coverage of the protests brought even more attention to the issue, with many calling for state-level reforms to school lunch programs. As pressure mounted, the school district was forced to act. In a more detailed follow-up statement, Avon Community School Corporation announced that they would be implementing immediate changes to their lunch program. They pledged to conduct surprise health inspections in all cafeterias, retrain cafeteria staff, and ensure that all children, regardless of their ability to pay, would receive a nutritious, balanced meal. We understand the gravity of this situation, and we are committed to making sure it never happens again, the statement read. Despite the promises from the district, many parents, including Anders, were still not satisfied. "Words are easy," she said in an interview. "What we need to see are actions. This is about protecting our kids. And until I see real change, I'm not convinced." The incident also caught the attention of state lawmakers, with some even proposing legislation to prevent future instances of lunch shaming in schools. No child should ever be made to feel less than because they forgot their lunch money or can't afford it, one state senator said. We need to make sure that every child is treated with respect and that no one goes hungry at school. In the weeks following the incident, several other schools across the country were called out for similar issues. Stories of moldy sandwiches, spoiled milk, and denied meals began surfacing in various districts, indicating a much larger problem within the public school system. As the conversation grew on a national level, advocates for children's rights pushed for more comprehensive reforms. While Avon Community School Corporation made efforts to address the immediate issue, it became clear that this was a symptom of a larger problem. Anders and other parents hoped that by continuing to bring attention to the situation, real change could be made to ensure that no child would ever have to experience what Jake did. "Our kids deserve more than just an apology. They deserve respect, care, and a decent meal," Anders concluded. Despite the changes Avon Community School Corporation promised, some parents remained vigilant, forming a watchdog group to ensure ongoing improvements. This group, composed of concerned parents and community members, aimed to keep a close eye on school policies and cafeteria operations. They plan to meet monthly to discuss any new incidents and track the progress of the school district's reforms. "We need to hold them accountable," one parent from the group said. "If we don't stay involved, nothing will change for the better." The issue of school lunch quality also opened a broader discussion about food insecurity among children. Many families, especially in lower-income areas, rely on schools to provide their children with one or even two meals each day. The moldy sandwich incident highlighted how critical it is to ensure these meals are nutritious and safe. As more attention was drawn to this national issue, advocates began pushing for increased funding for school lunch programs and stricter regulations to prevent similar situations in the future. No child should go to school hungry or be afraid of what's on their plate, a child nutrition advocate emphasized.